Hello again, space friends. I'm Kshal Aideron, and you landed on a new Voices of New Eden video. Where last time we had a brand new player, we're not only going to hear from an EVE veteran, but someone who's a big personality in the EVE ecosystem. He's well established in faction warfare, and is also an EVE content creator, as in YouTube and Twitch. He also likes to interview other players for his content. Anyway, enough introduction, let's get on with it.
Well, good morning, New Eden. I am Frozen Fallout. I am the leader of the Federation Frontline and the CEO of the Federation Frontline Report Corporation. We are a faction warfare organization that works for the Galente, and our focus is primarily on the Hey Die Less war zone area by Fleet and Devon and Old Man Star, some of the greatest solar systems in all of EVE Online. And yeah, we fight the Keldari on a daily basis. We also run a podcast called Federation Frontline Report. And we report weekly on the events that are happening in faction warfare, as well as do a lot of interviews with pretty much everybody throughout the EVE galaxy. Recently, our last really big spurt that we did of special interviews was for the CSM. So I would say over 20 years that I've played this game technically, but realistically, there's been definitely time periods of breaks that have happened there. So my first time that I looked at EVE Online was the beta. So inside of the beta, I jumped in. I was in a Corvette or whatever the newbie frig, what that they called it before, and I just didn't know what was going on. I had like there was this epic lore that they had kind of put out there, and we were like doing a lot of beta testing of different MMORPGs having come from Ultima Online. So this seemed like the next logical like progression of what MMORPG to jump into was EVE Online because of all the lore and all this epicness. It was supposed to be, this open world sandbox. You could, players make the items type kind of thing. And when you first start off, they're like, "Here's a frigate, you can go mine," like, find some random NPCs to blow up and slowly climb your way up the mountain. There was no new player experience or anything, so I immediately basically dropped right out. And I was like, yeah, I have no idea, 30 minutes into wandering around, it looked great, but I could barely understand how to move my ship, more or less play the actual game. So it wasn't until about 2005 that my friends really got back into the game. Earth and Beyond had just shut down, which is, where we kind of went over to, mainly me, but a couple of my other friends kind of played it a little bit. But after that shut down, around 2005, we started picking up EVE Online again. And then around 2006 is when I made Frozen Fallout. And although all the characters, the beta character, the 2005 character, I had one that was Frozen Fallout, had another one, Kyle Rifter, and then I made Frozen Fallout in 2006 when I actually came back to the game and they were like, "Oh, you get like 1,000,000 skill points now instead of like the 30,000 skill points that you start with." So I was like, I got to make a whole new character. So there was exploration. Exploration was very different. It wasn't like this cool scanner probe interface that you get to use. And actually, one of my buddies is really upset about that. He's, used to when scanning was nobody understood it. You had to like drop a probe at a planet or a celestial body, and then you could scan from there or something. It was some weird convoluted way of scanning that has nothing, looks nothing, and interacts nothing like it is today. But they did have, mission running and stuff like that. By 2006, lots of the game was pretty much there. Faction warfare wasn't there. There wasn't, I don't even think there was level 5 missions, or they just came out. Um, Everything was a very very different back then, but I kind of had the same introduction as a lot of other people. I started mission running. We did a little bit of mining. My interaction though was that I came into a group of friends that were playing the game, so there's about like 5 of us that were playing the game at the time. So we had this like high inspirations of, we built our own corporation. We went out to Old Man Star and started mining in Old Man Star, and then getting blown up while we were trying to mine in Old Man Star. We would just run missions out of the Ors Alert area, and I had no idea what Dixie was, what Jitta was, what a trade hub was. It was like, okay, I gotta buy this item. Okay, it's 5 jumps over there. Okay, go, I got that. Now what item do I need? Okay, that's 7 jumps over here. Okay, now where am I? What? Like, why have I lost? I'm in a different region now. I'm so confused. Where was I before? It's a lot of like running around, picking up stuff, running missions. But then we got into I got to the level 3 missions, and I wanted to get better payouts. So I found Hain, this little pocket of low sec, surrounded by high sec, surrounded by low sec, surrounded by high sec. So it's like this pocket within a pocket, kind of weird space. And you could run level 3 missions, and a lot of the level 3 missions would take you to high sec, but give you that bonus for being a low sec mission. And so I was like, let's move here. And then we did a lot of like mission running, mining, and pirate hunting. We hated pirates. We were like, these are the bad guys. We're gonna go pirate hunting. We did that a couple of times. Um, so that was like about the first 3 months of my experience with the game, was kind of just chilling in low sec, messing around with the high sec, low sec mechanics, a little bit of mission running, a little bit of pirate hunting. I mean, we've massive failures basically on that. Back then they didn't have kill mails, or if they did, they didn't. They were put into the game in a different way. It was actually an Eve mail, I think, and they've got rid of that Eve mail system, so you can't go all the way back to when they first started kill mails. But it was like right around that time where, yeah, nobody knows how bad as a noob I was, because it wasn't recorded in any way, shape, or form. I've definitely not approached industry on a massive scale in any way, shape, or form. I've definitely made a lot of faction items. I've made some minor, T1 items and stuff like that. I think I might have made a T2 item at some point, by just filling out just going to Dodixie or Jitter or something and saying, give me all the items that it requires to build this, and then I built it myself where I wanted it, type thing. But for the most part, industry is probably one of the things that I lack a lot of understanding in. Um, I like the base level though of what we have to do in faction warfare. That is super interesting, because it doesn't go too deep. You don't need too many different weird items in order to accomplish your task. Um, and I would say that I know a little bit about wormhole. I've definitely used wormholes to move about. I did some very minor living in wormholes. I've done some wormhole ratting and stuff like that, but like the peak level of what it is to be a wormholer, I don't quite understand. Um, I've done some minor stuff with cap, super cap dropping and stuff like that, but I'm not super familiar with that. It's one of those things where I've kind of touched a lot of stuff. I've seen a lot of stuff, but I haven't delved. You kind of have to eventually pick, like, what are you going to go deep in for Eve? Touch everything, see if you like it, and if it really catches you, um, then it's something that you're going to dive deep into. I'm trying to think of anything that I haven't touched at all. I mean, in general, I would say I know like 10% of this game. But that's because I've touched almost all of the game on the surface level, and then I've gone deep into one area that got me that extra 9%. But like, there is way too much in Eve to be like, I know 80% of Eve. No, you don't. You don't have time. Yes, so I moved almost immediately out into null if you take into the consideration the time frame of how long I've been playing this game. So the first 3 months, low sec, hanging out with buddies, five of us is trying to make our way in this wide galaxy. And then I learned of zero point zero a lot more. All the stories started coming out about this great war that was brewing between Goon Swarm and the Northern Coalition and Bob. All these guys were, battling with each other out there. There's great riches to be had out there. And I was like, well, what is this? And so I signed up with Firing Squad of the Interstellar Alcoholic Conglomerate, down in Ketch, right next to Quirius, and Fix was in Quirius, a pet of Bob. Bob was warring with the Northern Coalition. There was all this stuff that was kind of going on. We had Outbreak in our backyard causing chaos for the Interstellar Alcoholic Conglomerate all the time. McFix eventually, when the Great War brewed even bigger and Interstellar Alcoholic Conglomerate got involved in that. So I got to see some of the beginnings and the endings of like the Great War and jumping in as a fresh newbie, not understanding, anything of what was. I remember one time when we entered the war, there was an FC who gathered up a bunch of us newbies and was like, I'm going to show you the backwater systems that you can do ratting in during the war. But you don't want to be, I know you guys are sitting in fat and you guys are trying to get fat and fat, but don't do that anymore. That's the pipeline system. Let me show you where you can go hide if you want to do some ratting. And even then, be on your toes because Outbreak is out looking for you. I would say that there's multiple communities that I would say that I've been involved in or are currently involved in. Currently, I think the biggest communities that I'm involved in are, of course, Galente, Gal Mill, but I also do a lot of Spectre Fleet stuff. That has kind of taken a backseat to a lot of the stuff that I'm trying to build up for faction warfare right now. Um, but Spectre Fleet is awesome. I've gone on just so many different fleets with them, and I FC Thrasher fleets and Stabber fleets to go out and just harass zero point zero people and cause chaos in the Minotaur War Zone to try and keep it out of the Galente stuff that I do, try and keep those two personas separate from each other. Um, I've also, Fun Inc. I have, wanted to get into a lot of stuff with, and I'm trying to like find some time to do some stuff with Fun Inc. And I don't really interact with, but Eve University, as in like I don't do stuff for Eve University, but I use their stuff all the time, and we fight with Eve Uni quite a bit. Um, and I really like what they're doing. Brave Newbies also has a lot of really good stuff that is out there. Once again, not necessarily somebody community that I'm interacting with personally and doing stuff for, but I am fighting and messing with when they come around, and it's we all have a lot of good fun with that. Um, I do have to say that for a long time I was part of the Goon community. So Madison, Wisconsin, we're hosting our um, Eve Madison meetup here on May 10th. So just after FanFest. So if anybody that can't make it to FanFest, and it's starting to like brew up pretty big. We already have 18 tickets sold, and I know that's a lot of my friends haven't even got their tickets yet. And we've got a long way to go, and I know there's some pretty high profile people that are starting to look at this, and a lot of people who've been in Madison before because Madison was the capital of Goondor. Like this is where all the goons came and partied and hung out for many, many years. And that's how I got into goons eventually. I was going to these parties, I was doing faction warfare, and I was just hearing about all these epic stories of all this stuff that was going on out in 0.0 about how everybody lived in Madison was a goon, and we were all just partying all the time with each other. So I was like, oh, I'm gonna go hang out with these guys now because I have real life connections with them that I bonded with them first in real life, and then I bonded with them in game. And so there was many years that I partied with goons and flew with them, and that was a an epic time period for sure. But there always was a thing in me that was like, I just want to go back and build my own thing. Like I could still be friends and hang out with you in real life. I don't need to be part of goons, like I've got my own thing that I want to do. So Twitch was something that as soon as I started podcasting, the one of the fairly quickly, because a lot of the stuff that I wanted to do was actual play. So I would do um, podcasting, like talk show kind of stuff where I was talking with my friends, or we'd have interviews and stuff like that come on. But we did a lot of actual play, and so the podcasting kind of started from actual play, which kind of started from Twitch. So because we were like, okay, so let's do an actual play. How do we do that? So let's record it on Twitch and then we'll, disperse it from there so I don't have to put everything on my hard drive. The other thing too is I was like, let's do it on Twitch because then I don't have to edit so much. Um, because a lot of the burden of the beginning of the podcast was, it was just an audio podcast. We weren't quite doing actual plays yet. And we were kind of setting things up, and it was just a massive amount of editing. And then we started doing actual plays, and it started being another massive amount of editing. So I was like, let's just do it live, and then I don't need to edit anymore. um, it's just so Twitch kind of was one of the first platforms that we kind of jumped to after a little while of doing podcasting where we kind of actual play in podcasting and stuff. So oh, Un is probably one of the if it the only maybe area that probably has changed as much with how things work is 0.0 maybe. They actually rival each other. It's really interesting because like the first iteration that they had in faction warfare is completely different than what we have right now. There was like 50 to like 100 rats in a large and or an open, and there was like in order to win the site, you didn't have to hold down a control point like within a specific area of the thing. You just needed to get in there. You didn't need to kill any of the rats. You just needed to be inside of the plex. I think you maybe did have a range, but it was fairly big, and you just kind of like rotated around with an interceptor and in order to get a plex. If I remember correctly, like at the very beginning there was like no real reward for doing, like it was all about like taking the space, but like there was no actual mechanic for rewarding anything regarding anything in faction warfare. It's just you're trying to take space, you get a free war deck, there you go off, shoot each other. And then they introduced into the idea that we would get LP for running these sites. And then they introduced to the idea that the more that you win space, the more that the LP store would be cheaper if you dumped a bunch of LP into it. So it was this really weird thing where in the very beginning, once they got to the point where they were like, oh, you get a discount on the LP store for depending on how high your tier is. So 1 to 5. So at 1, you got like a penalty. 2 was normal. 3 was like a 50% discount. 4 was like 150% discount. And 5 was like a 225% discount on all items, ISK and LP inside of the LP store for faction warfare. So the first thing that happened was Caldari took over. It was like Galente or Caldari took over the entire war zone or near the entire war zone to get to tier 5, and then they took tier 5, and then Galente took almost all of the war zone. and got to tier 5, and you would take tier 5 for 30 seconds, or maybe like 30 minutes or something like that. And there was actually mechanical changes where in the LP store you can ask for multiple items now. um, and then hit confirm on having like 50 blueprints, or buying up all of the data cores and stuff like that. So if you wanted to buy an insane amount of data cores, you had to like click 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 click, because back in the day you didn't have that, because that's what triggered that. We were like, you have to put it in, you have to make an upgrade to the LP store. We don't have enough time to get all of the items that we're trying to get out of the LP store when we hit tier 5. And they were like, oh, okay, we'll do that. It was a simple fix. Um, but it was stupid. It was the dumbest thing on earth. Warzone control meant nothing other than the ability to you had to dump a bunch of LP into all of the systems in order to boost up the tier level, but you had to also have the systems, but that's the only thing that the mechanic meant. So it just meant that the Warzone was basically owned by one side or the other for very short amounts of time. And it would just flip over and flip back, and the farmers and the bots and stuff just decimated and controlled all aspects of how that worked. Like, and it was so annoying. So when they switched it over to being not a discount in the store, which is the dumbest idea, they switched it over to now when you have tier 5, you have a bonus to the LP that you get from a site. That was actually a huge improvement. Huge. I think around that time they started introducing the idea that you couldn't dock in a system. Um, and if you didn't own it, so in faction warfare space, if you didn't own the system, you couldn't dock in it anymore around that time. I'm not clear of when exactly that happened, but that was a pretty big change too. That meant owning space meant a little bit of something. You could actually oust somebody from Nenemelia, which was a huge, important system back in the day. And being kicked out of Nenemelia would be decimating to the Galente. And so we fought tooth and nail to ensure that we could keep Nenemelia under our control. And then they changed it up. The most recent changes have been just super awesome. And I think that there's still room for improvement, of course. But man, they really did a great job by switching things up. I have to say that the frontline system is exactly what we needed. We need to draw that if you want to make money, you need to do it in a space that is dangerous and everybody else is trying to quote unquote make money or kill you. Like, you can't make money just anywhere in faction warfare now. And that was a thing you could, like, botters and farmers could just do faction warfare anywhere before the frontline system started. And that was a massive detriment to being able to actually do PvP in faction warfare. Knowing where groups were and stuff like that, hunting, like stopping people from being able to farm and stuff was so much harder back in the day. Also, mission running was a huge thing underneath that system because missions got that bonus. And missions no longer get a bonus at all, and in fact got a little bit of a nerf when they introduced this system, because missions are free, easy money. Like, you just take out a couple stealth bombers. And in fact, having more people doing these missions, it was an interesting system if it wasn't just so damn safe. Um, and it's like you take out like 5 stealth bombers, everybody goes, grabs like 5 to 10 missions. And so you have like 50 missions to do. And the biggest, hardest part about those missions is getting around to where you need to go. But when you've got 50 of them, basically it's like go one jump, run a mission, go one jump, run a mission, go one jump, run a mission. And you just easily could just blitz through them with stealth bombers, fairly safe. If anything fucked with you, you just went to the next system over. And just continued your path of running 50 missions in a row and getting massive payouts for it. You can still do it today, but your payouts are going to be a lot less. And because you're not getting any of the bonuses for anything, and you got a slight nerf. And it kills your standings. So that is the one negative to running faction warfare missions, is that the Keldari will hate you forever. I am negative like 9.8 or something like that with the Keldari. And that's after bumping it up a few times. Like, it's rough. I would say community highlighting. I think that we need to have a in-game tab similar to the opportunities type thing that kind of lists out all the different communities, all the different community activities, like a community calendar that, not just for in-game events, but for out-of-game events. It's the coordination and understanding of what the community is doing in Eve is not centralized through CCP. And I think that that's a major problem. It's in the beginning, that's fine. You're 20 years old now, and your communities are nearly the same age as you. And are coming into being very distinct in their own right, but they've also bubbled themselves from the rest of the other communities, I feel like. Because for example, like when I posted my Eve Madison stuff last year, and even this year I've had some people ask, like, where do I find out where other events are going on? Like, how can I find out about any of the other events that are happening? And there's just no good answer for that. There's like a Discord that is out there that does like the different Eve meetups and stuff, but there's no centralized place for you to go and see what communities are there in Eve, and what can I be doing in Eve, and what could I be doing out of game for Eve in these communities. Um, and so I feel like there is a big problem right now for our ability to easily find out this information, when CCP could easily just put a tab, it's similar to many of the other things that they have in this game, where you just fill out a request form to be put onto that list, and you don't play favorites. You do community spotlighting, maybe, for big communities and stuff, but you should have a place for everybody to put up put up their community events, and it should be an easily accessible one location in game and out of game that should be on their website, should be inside of their game. And when the first things that you kind of pop up, and there should be like a little tutorial on it, like, these are the communities. If you want to go do a Spectre fleet, or a fun ink fleet or whatever, here are the different dates that they're running things. You could set it up so it take I think a decent amount of effort, but I think it would greatly enhance the new player experience, as well as coming back to the game and seeing something like that. I think would be epic. I haven't talked deeply about to CCP about this, but I've had surface conversations, and I just get kind of the feeling that they don't feel like that's their job, like that the communities need to I think there's a certain level of also just scared of playing favorites. And it all, CCP already feels like they play favorites to a certain degree, and it's, a lot of it is truthfully just feeling that they're playing favorites. And I think that that's a history of problems that CCP has had in the past, and that if they did centralize this, they would immediately become a point of controversy of who they're favoritizing, and why. I started up my new corp, and I posted on the community thing, and nobody came to my event. CCP is favoritizing these, massive horde gatherings that are happening, or whatever, Spectre Fleet, or whoever is, gathering the most amount of people at the time out of these community events. Um, and so I could see that being an issue, where they're scared of favoritism, and they're scared of being, put on. Also, just, some of these events, especially if you associate with out of game events and stuff like that, they're, you become associated with people that you might not want to associate with, and it opens you up to become a little bit more scrutinized as a corporate, or as a real life corporation that, who are these people that are running these events and stuff like that. And it's a lot easier for you to distance somebody from yourself from somebody when you didn't have it posted on your official website. And if the form process is some kind of automated system, and you're not like, and if it's not automated, then you have to have somebody like checking that all the time. And that's a lot of resources and time and effort. Um, so I do think that there is some legitimate reasons not to do it, but I think that there are ways to set it up so that you can protect yourself to a certain degree. It's the amount of work. I will admit it would probably be high, but I think it would be massively worth it in the end. Um, Oh, well, I could talk for like years about Eve, but I would say that yeah, we hit on I think the most important parts. One thing that I'd like to just kind of throw out there before we close up shop here, though, is I'm going to be setting up a alliance in low or high sec low sec. It's basically high sec charm around essence area. So it's, Charmaraut's a high sec system. You've got Yavangir, a low sec system, and Hadili's a low sec system. This is right in the faction warfare kind of area. And I've been working and talking with a lot of people. We're to be building up a new alliance. Um, and one of the big things that we want to do is, just try and have a great community for new people to kind of come in and touch their toes into the different things. We want to have a corporation that'll focus on exploration. I'm going to be the corporation that's going to be focusing on mission running. We've got a bunch of people who are doing mining. That'll be another corporation. We have a bunch of other just random corporations that kind of just want to work together in the Essence area. I've also created a new player experience guide. Right now, it's the raw version that's about 11 hours long. That'll get you all the way to faction warfare. We go take you through the new player experience. We take you through all the career agent missions, and then we take you into faction warfare and have you run a Plex. Um, and then I have a little bit more than I need to do. Well, I mean, lots more than I'm going to do with it. But I'm going to take that 11 hours that we got to that point, cut that all up. I also need to make sure that you understand how to use that LP now that we've got some LP for you. And then we do some more advanced tutorials on everything. So keep a lookout for that Federation Frontline Report on YouTube. You can check out the live version, the uncut raw 11 hours to get you through everything. I do spend probably a good 5 hours of that ranting and raving and talking about different things and different guides that I have to things. Like I take you through a marketing guide at one point. I'm like, you showed me the market and you're not going to tell me about this? All right, people, let me tell you about the market. I am like, skip this if this is just, if this is the information overload happening, and we'll have a short or something for this, but I just got to talk about this now that you showed me the market menu and you said buy immediately, and it's like, or sell immediately. I'm like, don't do that. And I was like, oh well, I guess with this item you have to do that, but this is why you wouldn't normally do that. So you can find us. We have the federationfrontline.com is our website. That has pretty much all of our links and everything there. There's Twitch, there's YouTube, we're on Spotify, we have a podcast. You can find us in-game Federation space front space line. So it's Federation Front Line is our in-game chat channel. So if you just want to hop in there and talk to us in-game. But yeah, we're all over the internet. Just search for the Federation Frontline Report or Federation Frontline and you will find us.
So I have a few words before we end this video. First, for the foreseeable future, I'll be releasing Voice of New Eden videos every 2 weeks on Sunday instead of every Sunday. I need to find a balance between this series, managing Eve rookies, and real life. Having 2 weeks to work on editing and doing interviews is a lot more realistic at this time. Could change in the future. Second, the interview with Heroes and Fallout lasted an hour. I have all sorts of questions that didn't make it into this interview, so keep your eye out for some bonus content. And lastly, a huge thank you to Frozen Fallout for doing the interview. Remember, anyone can be a content creator in Eve, and again, I'm not talking about YouTube or Twitch. Anyone who interacts with the game or each other is creating content. With that being said, it's time to go and create my own chaos. I mean, content. I'm Kshal Aideron, and this is Voices of New Eden. Until next time, be safe, space friends.